Welcome back students for the second video on the tongue, and this is concerned with the muscles of the tongue. The tongue is divided into right and left equal halves. Okay, it is divided into right and left equal halves with the help of the median fibrous septum. Let us see, since this is a coronal section of the tongue and this will be the right and left halves, and this is divided into right and left half with the presence of a fibrous septa, that is the median septa. Okay, it is median fibrous septum. So muscles are separate on right as well as onto the left side. Okay, onto the left side. Now these muscles are of two types. The muscles of tongues, they are of two types. We can classify them into two types: an extrinsic muscle and the intrinsic muscle. What are extrinsic muscles of the tongue? The extrinsic muscle of the tongues, they take origin from outside. Origin from outside means they are not confined within the tongue. They have the bony attachment at their origin outside the tongue, and then the muscle fiber, which are skeletal muscle fiber, they come into the tongue to get attachment onto the mucous membrane of the tongue, and when they contract, that's why they move the tongue. Okay, they move the tongue. So one of their end, that is origin, is a bony, okay, attached to the bone, while other end is attached to the mass of the tongue, okay, which is non-bony. It is not attached to the bone. The second category of muscles, they are the intrinsic muscles of the tongue. Intrinsic muscle of the tongue means these muscles are within the tongue. They don't come from outside, they don't go from outside. That means their origin and insertion is within the tongue, and since tongue doesn't contain any bone, hence they don't have any bony attachment. Okay, so they are, though still they are the skeletal muscle. They are called because they are voluntary. They are supplied by the hypoglossal nerve, and therefore the contraction of the tongue musculature is under our control. Okay, though they are not attached to this skeleton or to the bone. Okay, let us come first to the group which is called as the extrinsic muscle of the tongue, and these are the four muscles which takes origin from bone and then they come into the tongue. These are Genioglossus, Hyoglossus, Styloglossus, and Palatoglossus. So these are ultimately going into the tongue. Let us come first to the description of the Genioglossus muscle here. Okay, so I will come first to the description. Genioglossus means one which takes origin from the genial tubercle of the mandible. See, this is the section of the mandible. The incisor teeth is here. Here is the superior genial tubercle, and here is the inferior on the posterior aspect of the mandible near the symphysis manti. And this from upper genial tubercle on either side, right side and left side, this muscle which takes origin is the genioglossus muscle. Okay, and as soon as it takes origin, okay, this fans out right from the tip. The muscle fibers, they go right from the tip to that of the base, okay, towards the base. So at the level of that of the greater carnoa, so they are going here. So the whole of the base or the root of the tongue is formed by the genioglossus muscle. Okay, so right from the tip to that of the hide bone, you can see that these fibers are fanning out and they will go into the tongue and then will be attached. This is the dorsal aspect of the tongue, okay, through which these fibers are also reaching right up to the dorsal lowermost part, where it will have the say junction with the epiglottis. Okay, so this is the first muscle, genioglossus. Now supply, as I said, of all the muscles of the tongue is the hypoglossal nerve, the 12th cranial, except the palatoglossal, which we will learn will not be supplied. It will be supplied by the pharyngeal branch of the vagus. Okay. The axon, naturally see the direction of the fibers from genial tubercle of the mandible just in the midline, close to the right and left side of the midline. And then if these fibers which are going to the tip of the tongue, they will contract. What they will do, they will, the protrusion of the fibers, I mean to say, they will bring this tip of the tongue backwards. Okay, they will retract the tip of the tongue, but then the main fibers, mass of the fibers, when it will contract, what they will do, they will bring the tongue forward. That means protrusion of the tongue will be, but the rest of the fibers, mass of the fibers will do the protrusion, but those fibers which are going towards the tip, they will retract the tip of the tongue. Okay, when the protrusion is there, the tip of the tongue will be retracted. So this is the first muscle, and this muscle was called as Genioglossus. Right? I hope you have understood. Second muscle, Hyoglossus, and this Hyoglossus muscle takes its origin from the part of the body and the greater cornua and the whole length of the greater cornua of the hide bone. This is hide bone. So it will take origin from partly from body and totally from that of the greater cornua. Fibers will run upwards and anteriorly, slightly anteriorly, these fibers, and then will go deep to that of the styloglossus fibers and will go inside the substance of the tongue from right side as well as from the left side. Okay, now insertion, as I said, is in the posterior half on the lateral side of the tongue. Now supply is the same, hypoglossal, 12th cranial now, and when this muscle will contract, okay, on right side and left side together, okay, so that lateral margin of the tongue will be brought down, so it will depress the sides of the tongue, right side as well as left side. Thus the dorsum of the tongue become convex. Okay, so from both the margin, right margin and left margin of the tongue, of body of the tongue, when it goes down, naturally the dorsum of the tongue become convex. Okay, it will become convex. Let's come to the third muscle, and that is the styloglossus, and it is called stylo because it takes origin from the stellate process. So from the tip of the stellate process and adjacent part of the stylohyoid ligament. Okay, so this will also give origin, that means ligament stylohyoid and the tip of the stellate process, that will give the origin, and fibers will run downwards and forwards. So, and this will, insertion will be on the dorsolateral aspect of the tongue, where it will blend with the inferior longitudinal muscle fibers. I will tell you where is the inferior. This is those inferior longitudinal intrinsic muscle fiber. This is the superior longitudinal muscle fiber. So this muscle will come and blend with that of the inferior longitudinal muscle in the depth. Okay. Again the nerve is hypoglossal, 12th cranial, and what will be the action? It will pull the, okay, it will pull the tongue backward because it is coming from the posterior aspect of the tongue at a higher level. So it will pull back the tongue backward and upward because the origin is at a higher level than the insertion. So it will pull the tongue backward and upward. Okay, that means postero superiorly the tongue will go upward, postero towards the stellate process. Okay, and this action is important action because it helps in the swallowing process. The bolus of the food is pushed towards the oropharynx, okay, from which lies on the dorsum of the tongue, okay, deep between the heart and the tongue, okay, palate and the tongue, that is further pushed forward towards the I mean to say oropharynx. Okay, oropharynx. Let us come to the last muscle. Okay, and last muscle is the palatoglossus, extrinsic muscle I am talking. Okay, now this muscle is a small muscle showing here. This is the soft palate. Okay, this is the soft palate. So from the inferior surface of the palatine aponeurosis, in the last video, I mean say a day before yesterday, I had downloaded a video that was the video of the soft palate in which there was a palatine aponeurosis, and so from the inferior surface of the palatine aponeurosis this muscle takes its origin. Okay, so from the palatine aponeurosis of the soft palate, and then this muscle runs posterior lateral part of the tongue. It runs into the posterolateral part from right side as well as from the left side. Okay. And usually these fibers, they go inside the, I'm saying, the lateral side of the tongue, mostly at the junction of or close to the junction of the anterior 2/3 and posterior 1/3 part. Okay. Now this is the muscle, that is palatoglossus muscle. Okay, this muscle, palatoglossus muscle. This is supplied by the pharyngeal plexus, by that means the vagus, and the function, you can see that it is coming from above and going downwards, so it will elevate the posterior part of the tongue, again in the helpful in the swallowing process. Okay, in the swallowing. So this completes the four muscles. Extrinsic muscle, which takes the bony, and here the palatoglossal takes origin, aponeurotic origin. Okay, is there. Let's come quickly to that of the muscles which are the intrinsic muscles of the tongue. Okay, they are the intrinsic muscle of the tongue. And which are the intrinsic muscle of the tongue? Superior longitudinal, inferior longitudinal, transverse lingual, and the vertical lingual. These are the direction, as per the direction, longitudinal, transverse, and the vertical, the fibers are arranged. Now this is the superior longitudinal fibers. Okay, they extend from anterior to posterior end of the tongue. Okay, right from tip of the tongue, okay, to that of the dorsum of the tongue here, I mean say on the posterior 1/3, and when it will contract, the tip of the tongue is turned upward. Okay, that means here the diagram is little wrong. This is like that. Okay, so the fibers are running slightly obliquely, so when they will contract, the tip of the tongue will go up. The tip of the tongue will be turned upward. It will be turned. So this is superior longitudinal muscle bundle. Okay, in this diagram, coronal section, I will show you the, let us see here. Let me put it properly, the same dissector which I have introduced you. This is the superior longitudinal bundle. Superior. This, since it is a coronal, they are cut transversely. Okay, this is the superior on right side and left side on the median septum. Okay, on either side of the lingual septum or that of the median. Here is the, I will show you in the same place, the inferior longitudinal muscle is here. Inferior longitudinal. Then you can see here is the transverse muscle. Okay, and then some of the fibers running like this is the vertical. Okay, this, in this you may not see the direction, but I will show you hand drawn diagram. Okay, where you can see. That means all these intrinsic muscle fiber are mostly close to the dorsal surface of the tongue, while those fibers which are extrinsic, they lie towards the root. Okay, they lie towards the root. So this was the superior longitudinal muscle fiber. Let us go to the inferior longitudinal muscle fibers, and they lie on the inferior aspect. Okay, inferior aspect of the tongue between genioglossus and hyoglossus muscle. Where was genioglossus? It is here. Where is hyoglossus? It is here. In between the two, the fibers here, here at a higher level, like this are called as the inferior longitudinal fibers, and this turn the tip downward. Okay, they turn the tip downward. When it contracts, the tip of the tongue turns downward. Okay, then comes the transverse lingual, and for transverse I have cut a cross section. I would say that is the coronal section of the tongue, which will show you the transverse fibers. And these fibers, they arise from each side of the septum. Okay, median septum is here, lingual septum, and then they run towards the lateral border of the tongue. So from each side, the median septum, they run, and then they go to the lateral margin of the tongue. And if they contract on right and left side, these transverse fibers, they will increase the length of the tongue. Why they will increase the length of tongue? Because the tongue will become narrow. Tongue will, due to contraction, and if it will become narrow, it will get elongated and posteriorly. Okay, just imagine this action. Then there are the fibers, the four type of the intrinsic fibers. They are the vertical fibers running from dorsal surface towards the ventral surface. Okay, and when this will contract, this vertical fibers will contract, then the tongue will become flattened. Okay, tongue will become flattened, right? Okay, this is an action just opposite to that of the horizontal fibers are transverse link, so the tongue will become flattened. So these were the four superior and inferior longitudinal, vertical fibers and the transverse fibers. They are the intrinsic muscle fibers, and as I said, they are the skeletal muscle fiber, though they have no bony attachment. That means they act as per our will because they are supplied by the hypoglossal nerve or the 12th cranial nerve. So this completes the extrinsic and intrinsic muscle fibers of the tongue. Thank you very much for watching this video.